My name is Guillaume Wiatr. I'm the principal and founder of MetaHelm. MetaHelm is a strategy consulting firm based in Seattle. We specialize in helping companies build a strategic narrative so that they increase the level of engagement of their teams, their employees, their colleagues, but also their prospect customers, the whole community, you name it. Every Thursday, I invite you to join this free talk for 30 minutes, during which I share some fresh thinking. I prototype that thinking with you. Think about it as a virtual stage for us to connect and for me to try new ideas and see how they resonate. Today's, before I go, I'm antsy to jump in the topic, but just a few housekeeping items. So again, 30 minutes, this video will be posted on YouTube. I invite you to participate, to unmute, to ask questions, to help me reflect on those topics and to be engaged as much as you can. If you couldn't join this meeting this morning, know that if you sign up to my list at metahelm.com, I send reminders every week with a free invitation, a link to sign up. All right, let's see here. Oh, little typo here. Can you guys see this? Yes, great. I want to talk about, there you go. I want to talk about the brag zone today. This is a pattern I've seen for many, many years. When we talk about our business, there is this tendency to want to talk about us a lot. It's like we feel an urgency to describe all of the amazing things that we've built, that we've done, that we've collected. And we really want to jump quickly in this. I don't know if you've noticed that. We want to demo our product, our process, our solution, our wonderful, magnificent idea, and list all the features. That's really kind of a knee-jerk reaction. We're entering in this show-off mode. That's why I call this pattern the brag zone. So I'm going to give you an example. If I were to be in that pattern, I would say things like, I have the best product. It gives you the best results. And I know what you need better than anybody else because I've done more research than anybody else to build it. And I've won more awards than anybody else. I know more people than our competitors do. And with my team, we combine 350 years of experience. Have you heard this one yet? Yes, I see that all the time. By the way, we are an expert and a diverse team too. So why do I want to bring this up? What's the problem here? Because actually, all these may be very valid. They may be correct. And there's nothing wrong sharing those statements. But do these make sense for somebody who doesn't know me yet? Do these make sense for someone who is not yet compelled to march in the same direction as I am marching? And because they don't know if I'm marching in the same direction as them, I'm doubtful. When I do this, I offer a view that is really centered around me. If you do this, you're going to offer a view that is centered around your business, exactly what you do. I call it the self-centered view of a narrative. And in doing that, I don't give any room for anyone to see themselves in the story and in the narrative too. So I can't use this and only this if what I'm trying to do is create an open invitation to think differently and to do something different, and therefore adopt a new tool. This is not a good approach if you're trying to do that. Does it make you want to trust me more? I don't think so either. And that's a shame because trust is the number one thing that businesses and companies tries to do in the very first place. This is an example of what it looks like. This is a presentation slide deck from a large software company called SAP. I think it's one of the biggest in the world. And they released this deck. It's called the Top 10 Reasons Customers Choose SAP to Help Transform Their Business. So the top 10 reasons why you should like us. And it's a beautiful deck. And if you look at this, if you're in the B2B industry, and if you're in the software industry, you might think, wow, it's really impressive, right? And they've got a lot of numbers to prove it. And again, just bear with me for a second. These are very accurate facts. They're really well designed. I mean, this is a magnificent deck, but maybe not a deck to be used in just any situation. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people do. So why do we have this instinct? And please chime in maybe a little later if you have some ideas. But so far, what I've been thinking about, my theory is that we do this because we fear the lack of credibility. We think we're not going to be credible enough if we don't bombard people with why we're so great from the get-go. Also, we know our stuff so well that it's easy, right? We know everything about it. So we can give you all the data, all the facts from the beginning, and we can throw all of this at you. And also, this is a comfortable thing to do. A few weeks ago, there was somebody actually in the software, also working in the software industry in one of those calls. And he was saying, I like to talk about the product because it makes me comfortable. I can control it. I feel good about talking about it. And that's how I perform at my best. But the problem with this is that, like I said, it's all about me. And the metaphor I would use is that if we're in this mindset, it's like we have a fishing mentality. So fishing is fun, but it has its limitation. Let me finish the metaphor here. All of those messages are like bait, and the hard work of mobilizing people to do something differently is not possible if we have this fishing mentality. This is a quote from a colleague called Ryan Sensor, who says, "Our messages are bait on this little line that we cast into the sea. And we believe that because we have the right message, everyone swims and bites and gets caught, and we will just reel them in." But here is the thing. What if the fish is not hungry? What if the fish is too busy with too many baits? How do we change the waters? In other words, how do we change the context, the worldview, so that we end up creating a connection with a fish instead of trying to hook him on a line? So my perception, my perspective on this is that we have to do a few different things. And as I was reflecting on this to prepare this session, I thought, okay, the self-centered, and here's the statement, the self-centered story is not bad in itself. The problem is the lack of context around it. And that's a tough challenge because when you engage people, you don't know what context they have necessarily. If you're sharing an idea, if you're trying to engage people that you know that are your friends, your family, people you've worked with for a while, it's much more easy. But this level of trust, this level of awareness takes time to build. And it takes a different approach to do that. So, okay, so let's talk about how we do this. How do we shrink the brag zone? Okay, so the first thing is to shift your role. And I saw this earlier this week on Monday. I had a call with someone. He's an executive at a large firm and has to prepare for a pitch for a very large company also. So it's very high stake. It's like there's a lot of implication. It's so big that this would have consequences on society. Probably consequences on the American economy. It's so big, and the first thing I asked him to do is to to just prepare a 5 to 10 minutes draft pitch with no slides. And I said, just speak from the heart. Just tell us authentically, kind of spontaneously, what you would tell this company if you had to do the pitch right now without any preparation. And he was striking that to see that he was positioning himself as so he was very much in this self-centered mentality. Although I have to tell you, he's a very, very empathetic guy. He cares about people, others, like nobody else. Like he's a very genuine, very, very caring person. But yet he still fell into the trap, right? But maybe because in fear or without knowing about how to do this differently, or maybe he just didn't realize it. But I kind of set a safe trap for him to just realize that this is where he was starting, and he was really positioning himself as the hero of the narrative. So let me ask you this question. You know this story, right? And the story has a very profound narrative. So in the context that we're discussing this morning, should you be Yoda or should you be Luke? I see some slides. I guess this means Yoda. Simon.
Yoda. Yoda.
Okay, I'm really fishing for an answer, so you see me coming. Okay, you see me here with this. This is the answer. This should be you. You should be Yoda. You should be the guide, and Luke is your hero. Luke is who you're trying to engage in the Jedi movement, and here's the product on the left, right? But if Luke does not understand why he needs to follow the movement, why would he need a lightsaber, right? Yoda can tell him, hey, I'm the best. I have done all those fights, and I don't even know how old Yoda is. He's like hundreds of years old. And I've done that I have 350 years of experience just by myself. This is not how he brings Luke into the Hindu's movement. That's not how he motivates him to do something. Yoda has the experience. He was born with the Force, but before Luke can use the Force, he needs to desire to join the Jedi movement. He needs to believe that he can use it, and for this, he needs context, he needs understanding, and it takes him a while. In that in the first episode released, he knows the importance, but he's not emotionally, he doesn't connect. Actually, he resists joining the Jedi movement, for a while. He wants to become one inside, but he's not sure. And finally, there's a trigger, and he goes ahead and pursues the opportunity. So the first thing I would say is shift your role. And look at the way you think about your company, look at the way you talk about it, and try to see where the balance is, right? Again, it's a question of context. So what I'm explaining today works really well and is important in a context where people don't know you yet, or they know you, but you are coming up with something new to them, a new approach, a new piece of. I know we have software people here in the audience today. A new way to think about building software for a specific industry. The second thing you need to do is then set the context. And an example, I'm going to show you a slide that I just grabbed from my workshop, the strategic narrative. This is a slide that I prepped for a presentation I did at the University of Washington back in November. And I use the example of Tesla, and the whole narrative about Tesla is to have an impact on what's going on the planet right now. We are completely destroying the planet by too much CO2 emission. It's hard to believe, but it's a fact. And so the first thing that Elon Musk does when he launches new product around Tesla. So in this case, he was launching the battery pack, the battery module that can power your entire house. The first thing that he does, he doesn't start with the product right away. And yet this was in the context of a product launch. He spends a good 20 to 25, maybe 30% of his allocated time. It's fairly short talk. It's only 18 minutes. So he spends 5 to 6 minutes just talking to people about what's going on around us. And granted, he's talking in front of people who are already believers, but he's also talking to the media. He's talking to people who haven't heard about necessarily this very specific line of products. So he keeps repeating himself all the time and reaffirming the identity of the brand and the company and the strong beliefs that we need to look around. Once you're really set into this context and you're free to accept or not what he's telling you, then you can decide for yourself if you're going to need that product. So the second piece, this number 3 is misleading here. The second piece is set the context. The third piece I've been thinking about for this theme is use your perspective to share your point of view. And you might say, well, perspective and point of view sound the same. I learned this from Philip Morgan, who's one of my own mentors. And there's a difference between perspective and point of view. Perspective is where you stand. Point of view is what you see. And so if you adopt a new role, if you change your position, you're going to see things differently. Yoda sees Luke's situation differently than he does because he's got all those years of experience and he has a wealth of powerful things to teach him as a result. So I'm going to share an example with you. It's a website that I actually was involved in building. It's a website for a leadership. Can you see? Yeah, it's okay. It was a little blurry for a second. It's a website for somebody called Rick Torset, and Rick is a leadership coach here in the Seattle area. And when we started working together, he said he wanted to change his narrative, that something wasn't clicking necessarily when he was talking about his business to his client. And also the way he was framing his entire service offering was off. He didn't know why. And we looked into this together. And that was one of the patterns that I diagnosed for him, is that it was very much in the brag zone. For the same reason as I explained before, he just didn't know. He was just doing this it was just a knee-jerk reaction like we all do. And so this is the new version of his website. And you can go to ricktorset.com. We're going to actually see his website in just a second. I'm going to pull it to show you something else. The first thing he does is tell us immediately what he believes. And that's actually here on the upper left corner of the webpage. Leadership is learned. You know right away what Rick's point of view is, what his perspective is. Leadership is learned. A lot of people think that leadership is innate, or you need to be lucky to be a good leader. And he says, no, it's learned. And if you can learn it, means that there's probably some tools, some skill, there's a system. It can be acquired. There's just like we teach any other skill. The next thing he does on his website is invite us to a new opportunity immediately. Thrive inside a disruption. The opportunity is much bigger than him. It's not about him. It's about you being able to thrive in a world where it's kind of chaos, right? And he talks about it on the right. Talks about COVID-19 and climate change, which he called wicked problems. There's actually, I think, an official definition for wicked problems. And then he questions us. He kind of, catches our eye here with a set of questions. So again, it's not about him. He doesn't pretend he has the answer. He's in questioning mode right away. You've been leading inside COVID for nearly a year. How are you doing? How's this going for you? So this is what I mean by by using your perspective and sharing your point of view. I'm going to give you another tip. I like to finish with a very concrete tip that you can piece of advice that you could use immediately. It's how to be aware of the word you when you build your narrative and when you share it with others. So for this, I will actually switch to Rick's live website. So let's see here if this is going to work. Yeah. Can you guys see this? If I share the website right here, can you see the live version? Cool. So we're going to do a test. I'm going to, and my browser is going to help me. I'm going to do that with my browser. I'm going to try to count how many times on the homepage Rick uses the word you. All right, I don't know if you can see, it's right here. It's 58 times. He uses the, let me do this, that might be better, the right should. So he uses 58 times the word you versus me on the homepage. And it's highlighted in yellow. You can see every time he uses you. Even when he introduced himself, by the way, about Rick. Rick is about you. Right? He's your guide. He's your man. He's there for you. Right? Realize your talents. All right. Let's do the opposite test. Let's see if there is any me. Okay, but okay, I'm catching also the me in immediate or some or so the count is off right here. This is not a this is a false positive. I don't think there is the word me very many times. He does it when he talks on his about page. If you go to his about page right here on the top right, that's going to be about him for sure. Because at some point you still need to have some facts and some idea of who the person behind the company is here sorry. And so that's him, but that's not the first part of the narrative that he brings up. All right, I hope this was helpful and insightful. This is a pattern I've been thinking about for a while, so I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. And probably the first question is here in the audience, who has seen this pattern before and who noticed it? Anybody? Unmute your microphone and
I've seen it after you pointed it out. I've started noticing the brag zone. Sure. And it makes sense for credibility. It like we all need to have some credibility piece somewhere, but is it the giant upfront piece or is it like a little spot over here that people can check when they're ready to?
Yeah. Okay, you've seen it. One other question I have for you is, what else do you think should be in the context? Maybe it's a stretch your thinking question. It's a more difficult question because I don't think I have a perfect answer for it yet. So I'm asking for help. But what else could we add to context setting to show people what's going on? I mean, I took the example of what I call a sea change. It's like the inevitable, undeniable, irreversible change. But that might not be, depending on the context that might not be relevant. It's kind of relevant for many people, but what else could we think about for context?
I think the way you presented it with Tesla, he's getting people to buy in. Like, okay, everybody with me, you understand this is the reality that we're in. Yeah. And then they're halfway there already. They're convinced that they need to solve this problem. So that the context isn't just this is where we are. You have to guide them along so that they buy into that and understand that is true. Whether it's true or not, they have to believe that is the real context.
Right. And so what you were saying is that it's not static, it may be dynamic, right? He's you say, I noticed your hand did this, like there's a progression, right? There's a movement towards a direction. There, that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, you can't just tell people that this is, if you just stand up there and say climate change is real, we know that that doesn't really sway a lot of people. So you have to explain and tug at their heartstrings and, yes, show them data, but also tell them stories and help them understand and help them get past their own biases, see through the cracks, and then buy in totally. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but
I think it does. No, I think it does. I think what I'm hearing also, Joshua, is you can't just say, okay, here is what it is, and it's also because he's also doing it. He's also showing a progression. He's also showing. I mean, his message is it's not going to get any better. And we should do, it's happening, it's progressing. There's a progression, there is a transformation, there is an evolution happening. So that's what I'm hearing in your, I think it makes sense.
I think it can also be something, that's smaller. I mean, climate change is, just a huge, huge thing. And you're going to have people who who understand it, believe it, and other people who are like, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm not going to buy a Tesla, I'm just going to do what I always do. But then there are smaller things. Like, for instance, I'm thinking about the online dieting tool called Noom, Noom. And that's not necessarily some big global problem, but for some people who've been dieting over and over again, they're telling their stories about how this is a different way of thinking about eating. And this app helps you think about eating and what, I mean, it's not a diet, it's a change about what food is. And so that kind of, and people are telling their story and basically saying, this is what finally changed it for me. This is what finally shifted for me. I understood what I was eating and what was the value of the stuff I was eating. So that gets people into a movement of like, oh, this isn't a diet. I get to learn, I get to educate myself, which is going to help me. So, but that's something so much smaller,
I think you're spot on, Patricia. And I'm glad you brought it up. It doesn't have to be, it's funny because I pick big examples of big things changing, but you're right. It doesn't have to be a global change. It could be at a completely different scale. I really agree with you. That resonates very strongly. In fact, I'm thinking about an example that I know very well. It's something nobody here would know about. It's a company I work with, and they do networking. So technical data networking, and it's and they work on, their context is a lot smaller, much more specialized and focused. We didn't hear about it, but things are rapidly evolving in their context. In fact, there is one connection to a bigger problem, which is the increase in those hacks, security hacks, and ransomware situation. That's the one link here, but I agree with that.
I think another thing about the brag zone is it's when you notice it, and I think we all have a tendency to go in that direction when we're trying to explain like what we do. When someone says, what do you do for a living? You kind of like launch into that instead of like, oh, there's global warming and therefore this is why I do it. And I think so part of it is because we're not comfortable with silence. We feel like we need to fill the void all the time, even in conversation. So we kind of gravitate towards something we know, like ourselves, And, you know, when you have conversation with people that you've not met before, but you're in a social environment and you're introducing yourself, some people just launch into big things about who they are, what they do, blah, blah, blah. And then other people are different. They ask you a lot of questions and they're curious about who you are. And that's a whole different conversation that you end up having with someone. And I think it's the same thing in your business.
Yes, and I would say that the question in itself, what do you do, invites to talk about the what. To talk, you know, it goes straight to the object, the thing. And so if you've been working on this thing, you know, if you've even created it, if you're the founder, then you're going to talk about that thing all the time. It's going to be all about you. So the question tees you up for this pattern. It's biased already.
It's
Right.
it's like the questions that you ask. You can ask, "What do you do?" Or you can ask, "Why do you do what you do?" Or "Who do you help?" And I think that's when we're in the brag zone, it's because we think we have to answer the "What do we do?" because somebody's coming looking to find out if we have the thing that they need.
That they need, yeah.
But really,
Absolutely.
they are coming with the question they don't understand, which is this the right place for me? Are these my people? And then
Right.
do they do what I need them to do?
So it's really, so what's interesting in your both in your comments, Patricia and Joshua, is like you're saying it takes two to tango. Also, it depends what question you're being asked, what question you hear that you were asked, how do you interpret it, right? That's okay. This is something I never thought about, but I don't know if you see that too. It's like it's not just on one side of the equation. It's like both. It's all about the interaction. I might say that if you're the recipient of the question, you have a chance, maybe a responsibility to reframe the question and answer it differently, maybe.
Yeah, I
Good.
think being asked, what do you do? I mean, that's a very standard question in our culture.
Right.
You know, and you know, maybe the better questions are, you know, what do you believe in? Or what do you stand for? Or why do you do what you do? As Joshua said, you know, the reason behind it. That's the meaning that everyone's looking for.
Right. So here's a thought. It would be interesting to carry an experiment. And for those who plan on coming back next week, maybe do this simple test of if you meet someone new, or even if you meet somebody you've known for a while, try to experiment with that question of why do you do it? Maybe would that be a good question to ask? Just as an excuse, just as a way to move away from the what and see what happens then. I just made up that that homework on the fly. How do you guys feel about that? I'm gonna try it. I'll tell you next week. If each of us has one chance, that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that six data points plus people who are going to listen to this video on YouTube. They can email me at guillaume@metahelm.com with your experiment. This is really fun, right? Okay, let's do this experiment. I see some head nods here, so everybody seems on board. We're going to see what it does, right? We don't know. Maybe we might fail or feel very awkward or uncomfortable asking this question, but that's where people are going to look at us with big eyes, and you will only know that you're testing the potential anti-brag zone medicine. All right. Thank you so much again for tuning in today to this Strategic Narrative Underground session. I will see you next week. Come back and for more fun.